Welcome back and good morning, Central Oregon. Todd Sensenbach joins me again this morning from Home Instead Senior Care. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
I am very well, and I bet you get a lot of questions regarding home care, home health care, on and on and on. What exactly is home care?
Home care is where people can come into somebody's home, caregivers, and help them with activities that might be limiting their ability to stay at home. And that's basically the really quick definition of what home care is. And home health is where doctors or nurses or physical therapists or occupational therapists or speech therapists come into the home, and it typically has to be prescribed by a doctor, and home care doesn't have to be. So that's probably the first thing that I try to clarify for people when they're trying to wonder what home care is. Think of an activity that's limiting mom's ability to stay in her home. And we can have a caregiver come in and help them with that.
So specifically, let's talk about some of the specific things that people request.
Yeah, probably the most common ones would be helping them with their meals, shopping, preparing them, helping them with their housekeeping. If there's running the vacuum cleaner's not as easy as it used to be anymore, for example, that's one of the more common ones. Transporting them to their doctor's appointments, maybe running their errands. And then we can even help them with their bathing or their dressing or their grooming, things that, just think of an activity maybe that if mom could just do this one thing, she could still stay at home. And the family's starting to get worried that maybe she can't stay there anymore because she can't drive. And it's a very simple thing, and we can solve that problem very, very easily for them.
So what are the signs that talking about home care might be appropriate for a loved one?
Well, the first thing that I always tell people is make sure you're staying tuned in and you know what's going on. And if you notice some change in their health, their skin tone, mom kept her house immaculate her whole life, and all of a sudden it's not the same anymore. Maybe bills are starting to pile up. Maybe you're wondering where all these medications are coming from. When you ask mom a question, she's not really sure. Just something's going on that you're not comfortable with. It might be an appropriate time to talk to somebody like us, to have somebody come in and check in on her once in a while.
Would it be appropriate, though, because you and I have talked about this before, to talk to mom first about that? Because sometimes it can feel threatening, maybe, to a senior that suddenly their kids are taking charge of their life.
Yeah, I've never seen it work.
Yeah.
If mom doesn't know about it first.
Right.
So yeah, that's the first thing. And that's sort of when we talk about the 40-70 rule, making sure they're prepared for this and they're okay with it. And that we're trying to help them remain independent. We're not trying to take independence away. And that's really what home care is all about, is to help them maintain their independence and not take it away. So that's the angle that I usually help families with when they're trying to convince somebody to accept a caregiver.
And that can be really tough because you're inviting a stranger into your home to do things that in some cases could be very, personal.
Yeah.
Is it more helpful to have a family member there during maybe the first couple of meetings, or how does that generally work?
Well, it's up to the family.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a really good idea. Other times maybe the dad doesn't want the daughter there. But it really is up to the family. And the neat thing about what we can do for people is it can be completely tailored to what they need. I mean, the number of hours per week, the type of care that we're doing, it can just be tailored. If they only need transportation and they don't want anybody touching their house, we have a solution that will fit that.
When is home care not appropriate?
Well, let's say they have a limited budget and they can't afford more than just a couple hours a week of our services, and they're very social, and they're depressed, and they need socialization, and so then maybe selling their house and moving them to an assisted living might be a better solution.
Okay, it's going to be a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Nothing is cookie cutter. So what do people need to be aware of when selecting a home care provider?
You just need to ask some really, pointed questions. How do they train their caregivers? How do they screen them? Do they do a criminal background check? Do they do a drug screening? Do they have a quality assurance program that's going to ensure that mom and dad are being taken care of correctly? What do they do for backup caregivers if one of them's sick? What's their commitment to the family if they don't like the person that you've sent? And what we tell people is that we work really hard in the beginning to try to match really a caregiver really well, and then once we have a great match, we just leave it that way. So you get Sally every time. You love Sally. She becomes an extension of your family, and unless she's sick, you're always going to get Sally.
That's right. It's not just whoever's on shift that day.
Right.
And then if the match doesn't work, you work to make it right.
Yep.
Yeah, you work to make that right. So paying for all of this?
Yeah, that's probably the first question that I usually get, and Medicare does not cover this, and that's the first question I usually have to answer.
Yeah.
But Medicaid will cover it if somebody qualifies. There's programs through veterans that'll cover it. And if they have a long-term care insurance plan that's written correctly, it'll cover it.
Okay.
And if they don't have any of those things, then their only option would be private pay.
Okay.
Yep.
If you have any questions, you can call Todd at Home Instead Senior Care, 541-330-6400, and homeinsteadben.com is the website. So it was nice to see you this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.